All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Green White Checker TV. Tonight we are over the Atlantic here, over in Spa, Belgium, for at the circuit of Spa-Francorchamps, the DarkHorseArea51 Indy Series here tonight. This is going to be a very fun one tonight. I say usually mostly oval racing, but usually once a season at least they throw in a road course just to spice things up. I believe last season was Monza over here at Spa tonight, so it's going to be a lot of fun to see these guys try to navigate this very tricky but very, very fun, very, very enjoyable track here tonight. So it's going to be a little bit of a longer startup warm-up session here to get under, kind of get the green flag going and all that. As again, it's a very long track here tonight, 4.3 miles as you can see on the track description there. And saying, bear with me because I'm going to be having to remember and learn all these turns and names. And it's about 18 turns or actually 19 it looks like if I see the numbers correctly. And also say kind of bringing a ringer into the booth here with the Indy cars and of course with road racing in general. And that is going to be Andrew Wood, who's going to join me tonight. So Andrew, I know you're getting your lap around there to get your warm-up lap done so we can start. We're going to hop on board with your car soon to kind of go through a lap here. But I mean, you've done your fair share of racing. So while you're doing that warm-up lap, take us through like what do you change of your approach between the road courses and the ovals? I mean, how different is it for you when you're racing these cars here versus at like an oval, let's say at Michigan?
Yeah, when you're racing at a road course, it takes a certain level of dedication and focus in particular to make sure you're hitting your apexes properly and everything like that. And, you know, when you're racing at a road course, you always have to worry about people kind of racing around you as well and minding your gaps to make sure that you're keeping all sorts of good gaps to cars around you and make sure you check your pace compared to everyone else. But yeah, so we're here at Spa-Francorchamps. That's La Source. I just went through turn one there. You're going to want to get on the gas really flat here. This is a completely flat straightaway. So you're going down to Eau Rouge Radillon complex here. A lot of commitment on the uphill there. You want to stay flat as best you can. You're staying flat down the straightaway. Make sure you're staying in the draft of whoever's around you here. We're going down to Lake Home. You want to take a little bit of curb here on the left side on the braking point to try and maximize your entry speed. It takes a little bit of throttle modulation to get through these two corners a little bit, but once you get onto this straightaway here down to Bruxelles, you want to get back on the loud pedal again. Down here we got Bruxelles, which is a off-camber right-hand sort of turn, so you want to try and stay as far to the inside as possible until you get to No Name Corner here. A little bit of an awkward entry because you can't really see the entry too well. Get back on the throttle down here to Pujon. Another blind sort of entry, just got to make sure you hit your mark and wash out to the right side as you saw me do there. Down here at Campus, it's a little bit of a deceiving corner on the entry because it looks like you want to turn early, but you actually want to turn late, hit the apex late there, get back on the throttle on the exit to run over the curve there. Then you get down to the bottom of the track here at Stavolo and get back on the throttle early here. A lot of commitment on this right-hander, but don't wash too far to the left like I did there. And you're back on the throttle, full throttle, all the way down this long straightaway here. Coming up to this famous corner, Blanchimont here, this left-hander that I'm coming up to. You want to stay as close to the inside curve as you can so that when you wash out, you're good. Coming to the last chicane here, same sort of thing. To open up your corner, you want to stay as far left as possible. Very, very slow chicane, very, very easy to overshoot it or miss the entry there. And then that's a lap here. I was going to show how difficult the pit entry was there, but I missed it.
Oh, that's all right.
Unfortunately.
Well, no, we'll have you. So you can just run another lap. I'll say because while you're talking, I say, well, let's say we're on board with you there. Now we'll kind of watch from the outside view because again, the scenery of this track is just completely breathtaking. But no, and you're spot on with what you're saying there, Andrew. On some of those turns, like I said, the commitment is I think the one that's the biggest thing tonight. And like you said, also needing to make sure you don't wash out and all that because incident points are going to be in effect here tonight. So basically, it sounds like every 17 or I should say the initial 17 incident points. If you go off track, of course, that's usually one. So basically, if you do that 17 times, you're gonna get a drive-through penalty here, and then every 10 after. So, for instance, if you get to 27, you're gonna have 2 drive-throughs over the course of this race. So that's gonna be something that's gonna be very, very important for these drivers. Try to minimize the mistakes here this evening to be able to kind of nail their pit times, and because I think fuel is also gonna be critical on here. Hearing the field number is really, really tight on the number for maybe being a 2-stopper if they can work an extra number. Like I said, like you showed right there, if you go a little bit too wide there, that's going to show an off track, obviously, on your side. But yeah, so those are things these guys are going to have to be careful about, not being too greedy, try to take too many risks here. But yeah, I mean, like I said, this track is not the most forgiving for sure, but definitely one of the fan favorites here for iRacing, for Formula One. I mean, just anybody and everybody that races it or just spectates that. This is definitely a fan favorite here. We're gonna hop back on board though with your 64 machine, because you're coming back down that back straightaway here, and as I say, now you can show again how treacherous this pit entry is gonna be. Because like you said, it's not an obvious one to say. When you came into the bus stop chicane right here, instead of turning right then left, you got to make that sharp right, and then you got to go straight, and then it's almost like you said, a blind left, try to find the middle there, and then you can kind of hustle until you get to those yellow cones right here for that pit speed limiter. So yeah, so that is not the easiest of pit entries here tonight, so that could also be one to be a cause of concern for. Are using the Formula version of the Grand Prix, I should say, version of the pit stall, so in that sense they'll be able to come right out like you're doing right here. They'll see the cone there, they can drop the pit limiter, and then once they get clear, they'll be able to go out right there at the blue cone and kind of merge with the field. So some of the endurance races, you have to actually go through both set of pit stalls there. So yeah, so that's always a different one as well. So it's going to be fun to see what these guys are going to have in store for us, though, Andrew. Appreciate you doing the lap, and while you kind of get settled in over here, we'll pull up our points for tonight, start coming into tonight's event, I'm sorry, as it's right now a tie for the lead between Nick DeGroot and Jeff Hysong. The streak has been broken, though. They finally are not the only winners, as Craig Forsyth got a big win last week, jumped him up 4 positions into the top 5. But again, right now it's pretty much the Nick and Jeff show, because they got 66 points over Joseph Morales, 81 over Eric Peterson, 86 over Craig Forsyth, and you see 89, 94, 91, 94 all the way down to 8th Matt Wagner. So it's going to be a stretch for those guys. We do still have the drop week in play, but there are no playoffs, anything like that. So it's a season-long competition here. It's going to be fun to see as qualifying still continues on, which actually looks like might be just nearing completion here, Andrew. About a minute left here in time. It looks like pretty much everybody's put their laps down that wanted to. So it looks like we're going to have about 11 drivers put a lap down. And it looks like 3 opting to start from the pits, including Jeff start from the back, including Jeff Hysong, importantly, Joseph DeCiro and Chris Matthews, with the championship contender of Nick DeGroot there up in 3rd.
If I could just jump in really quick here, Gael, I noticed when I was doing my second lap there, you noticed I went a bit wide at Puhan. It looks like this qualifying setup that these drivers are going to be using tonight definitely was really putting a hamper on those red tires. I felt a lot of rear slide when I was actually trying to do a proper lap there. So yeah, you were mentioning before that the tire compounds are going to have a certain impact here tonight. And I can already tell based on how the setup is that a lot of these guys are going to be running, that the red tires likely might not last as long as they think they will. I had a lot of slide there. So that was pretty interesting to notice.
No, that's going to be a good thing to know, as I say. Now that's going to be the difficult decision for these drivers. What tires do they want to start on? But before we get to that, let's pull up our starting grid and actually look at this. The top 3, if my timing and scoring is showing correctly here, Craig Forsyth, Luis Gonzalez Nunez, and Nick DeGroot are all within 1/1000th of a second of each other. I'm not 100% sure that's accurate, but showing Craig at a 156.291, identical to Luis, and then Nick DeGroot 1/1000th off. Then you got William Gunn a 10th down. Matt Wagner rounds out our top 5. Then Jim Herrick, Covey Moore, Dan Marrera, Yari Brupacher, Eric Peterson our top 10. And then Chris Jabot there in 11th. Obviously, Andrew not 12th. Let's say he put that lap time in, just kind of doing us a favor there, doing us a solid to kind of get and show how to run a lap around here. So that's going to promote Jeff Hysong, Chris Matthews, and Joseph DeCiro up a position. So it looks like 14 starters here tonight, Andrew. 31 laps, and again, we talked about the fuel mileage is going to be definitely one to watch. And one benefit for these guys, though, it will be a short grid. As you can see, the drivers already back down on the backstretch, aka Blanchiment. So I'm going to work on trying to remember. I've got my little cheat sheet up with the name and the turns and all that. So I'm going to do my best here tonight. But yeah, so I don't know if you can verify that for me, Andrew, or not. But if those top 3 are as close as they are, that is incredible for almost a 2-minute lap.
Yeah, I can say that that's exactly what I see on my side too. The top 3 there, Forsyth, Nunez, and DeGroot, all very, very close. A little bit of a disappointing lap from Covey Moore there. we kind of expected more from him, but maybe he has a different strategy to maybe stay in the back and save some fuel like we were discussing before.
Yeah, that's the great point. Is I say, so if anybody tries to do the long grid, if you will, or sorry, the long fuel run approach here, they're going to pretty much want to be in the draft, I feel like, and that's going to kind of come into play is the push to pass. I am looking at the tires on these cars, and not a lot of reds is what I'm seeing, Andrew. I do see Nick DeGroot on the reds. I see, I believe, Covey Moore on the reds, and then Chris Matthews, and then from everybody else, all on the back, they're all primary black tires. So we'll see. Maybe the alternate reds are going to try to do that quick, like you mentioned. The kind of they lose the grip later on, so maybe a quick stint, like let's say run 4 or 5 laps, take those reds off, run blacks the rest of the way, as those tires will be a little more kind of consistent throughout the course of the run. So it's going to be fun to see here, and I say we're going to have one of the first races here with Area 51 over at Spa.
Yeah, I'm very interested to see what happens with Nick on these red tires. Is he going to move fast? I guess you have to move fast if you're going to go for it, but looks like we're going to go green here in a second.
Yeah, pace car's up. Everybody's trying to get situated here because it's a really quick run to the start-finish line. Green is out. And man, Nick DeGroot right on the gearbox of Craig Forsyth is going to peak entering turn 1. Craig's going to hang on for the moment. Look at William Gunn running way wide there on the exit there. Say they do have the kind of the extra space to get away with it, but looks like everybody's so far so good as they go through Eau Rouge for the first time.
Yeah, it looks like that. Like I was mentioning before, the cold tires are really going to catch people out there.
Oh wow, Craig almost lost it there.
Yeah, I noticed that. Yeah, it looks like we got one guy in the grass. It's Covey. He's actually trying to move right now, so his qualifying really was kind of a mistake. So he's going for it.
Yeah, I think Craig lost so much momentum as well because he just had to basically not wreck that car. And there goes Covey though up to second. So started 7th up to second after just a couple set of turns there. That's a great start for the teammates there with the Motorsport Com livery on the back side of the 87 and the 89 there. So and these are 2 red sidewall tires here. So this might be their plan is, hey, let's just try to run away, use these reds up, and then we'll see when they hit for the first time for the blacks. So but yeah, right now, great start by Nick and an amazing start by Covey to get to that second spot.
Yeah, it couldn't have worked out better for DeGroot and Moore there. They both picked up spots when everyone else around them seemed to lose them. So let's see if they can check out here on those red tires and see what goes on from here.
Yeah, so now like you said, it's got to get the temperatures in the tires, kind of get yourself in a rhythm. But for Luis Gonzalez, obviously, he doesn't really have that opportunity right now because he is completely hounded right now by that number 14 of William.
Oh, Wagner's on the grass.
Oh, yeah, Wagner's off, but looks like he got away with it once again. But again, losing all that momentum, losing all those positions here. So he's going to have to try to catch back up a little bit. And you see Chris Matthews cutting him a little bit of slack. But yeah, that's unfortunately a tough break for Matt. Now down 6 positions from his starting spot. And that's going to be tonight, is trying to keep in touch with what's going on where. And it looks like no pit stop. So it looks like everybody gets through lap number 1, no damage. So no front wing changes, anything like that. So that's good news for these guys. But up front, you mentioned that breakaway, and that's exactly what we see right there, though. It's about now 2 seconds between Covey and Nick back to Luis Gonzalez here.
Yeah, it looks like Matt gave a lot of room
contact
there.
Oh, big contact for the 14. Yeah, you don't want to go side by side through Eau Rouge. That is never a good option. And unfortunately, it looks like it's going to be William Gunn getting the worst of it. Has to take a tow. Let's go back and take a look because that was the battle for that 3rd position. So you see the 14 here. He gets the run off of the 14, or sorry, the 15. Let's hop on board. And actually also on the push to pass here as well, just for kind of good measure, try to get that run in. But then this is very infrequent. This goes very well here. As you can see, it looks like he has the nose ahead, but then actually a lot of net code as well there. And unfortunately, just nothing at that point the 14 can do. And he's just going to make a big impact with that wall there. And, oh, Wellencar just barely snuck by him there. We'll have to see if anybody else was involved here, but we'll jump back live once more because William Gunn is on pit road. But yeah, that's kind of the spot that just unfortunately there's not a lot of room for margin for mistake.
Yeah, it seems like lap 2, you got to take a risky move to try and get by someone you feel like you're faster than. But going up through Eau Rouge is just such a dangerous thing to do. You have to have a lot of trust on the car next to you, and unfortunately, the trust that he felt like he had with that the driver next to him there is probably going to stick in his brain for a bit longer this season.
Yeah, that's a good point too. Is these guys race with each other pretty much all season long. I'd say obviously 12 weeks and kind of a quick off season, then right back to it. So you kind of, I feel like you probably get at some points like, okay, I can trust this guy. I probably got to be more careful about this guy. As we're watching a really good battle here, Eric Peterson right there, Jeff Heisson, Chris Matthews, and then Matt Wagner, Chris Jabot as well, all hitting all right there together. And again, though, nobody jumped to pit road, so I think somehow everybody else still was able to kind of get through there unscathed. So that was a great break for them. But what we do have is I'm keeping an eye on lap times. I'm sure you are as well here, Andrew. I'm watching Covey Moore. Last time by, he ran the fastest lap of the race, about 0.2 quicker than Nick. So that gap's down to about half a second between those two teammates.
Yeah, this battle with Eric Peterson, Jeff Heisson, and Matt Wagner trying to claw his way back. This is a pretty crazy looking battle here. It looks like these guys are they're kind of tripping over themselves to make the best situation here. Jeff gets by Eric.
Overshoots it a little bit though.
A little bit, yep.
And then got on the throttle too soon on the gas there, loops it around. He's going to give up all those spots, but again, looks like no harm, no foul. He's going to grab a gear, get going again. But that's a tough one for him, so he's going to have to kind of regroup once again. But so now we talked about the strategies here. Pretty much everybody was on the primary block except for the top two drivers and then Chris Matthews. Do we think anybody's going to try to kind of just ride and really aggressively save fuel in these cars to try to make that, to kind of cut that one pit stop out? Because it sounds like 10 laps on fuel is a no-brainer. 11 is a lot to ask for when you've got a track as long as Spa.
Yeah, you're going to want to make your 10-lap stint the red stint for sure, especially if they fall off as much as we think they do. I'm watching Craig Forsyth right now. He definitely feels like he's in a good spot, just tucked in right behind Luis Gonzalez Nunez here. He's going to be doing his best to save fuel on this stint. You can mark my words there. He's going to just be kind of hanging out, watching the rest of the race unfold ahead of him. He knows the two leaders are on reds. He's going to be doing his best to just make up as much fuel here as possible. Craig being known as one of the top guys for fuel saving in this league.
Yeah, Craig is definitely a fuel-saving machine, and talked to him a little bit pre-race, and he mentioned that, yeah, he was a little bit worried about the fuel numbers. So we'll kind of keep an eye and see what he's able to do. I think that's going to be the big question is who do we see pit at lap 10, who pits at lap 11, so on and so forth. Can confirm, though. Yeah, I was about to say, yeah, William Gunn back on track. Unfortunately, that long tow. But amazingly, though, that long tow looks like only puts him down a lap. Again, just shows how long the laps are here at Spa. But right now, though, I'm still watching this battle between our top two here. I'll say kind of Covey Moore, the ringer, if you will, the road course ringer here. I'm wondering if he's just kind of using the draft to keep within range of Nick DeGroot here, not having to push too hard and just using that draft to stay within distance. But again, maybe saving fuel here on this red tire stint. So it's going to be fun to see what these guys have going on here. As Craig Forsyth is closing that gap on Luis, though, that's within half a second, one of our closest battles on track. A little further back, you've got Yari Brubacher trying to close the gap on Jim Herrick. And then Chris Jabot and Chris Matthews, I say these two, they've come on recently, but they've come on pretty strong. I say finishing third and fourth at Gateway in their opening race. So right now they're both in the top 10 here. I know both of them were pretty excited about what this track was going to unfold for them. But yeah, right now everybody's it's kind of what we expected here as well, where things are going to spread out over the course of this race because just the nature of road racing, and of course usually pretty much no chance of yellows here. So right now, like I said, the closest battle on track are these ones right here between that 83-92, the 40 and the 49, and then the 15 and the 27.
Music to my ears, Gael. Bring me into a broadcast with single file racing going on to indoctrinate me into what's supposed to be really, really difficult task that you undertake every week. But yeah, I'm watching the Nick DeGroot Covey Moore situation here. Covey does look like he's falling back a little bit, which leads me to believe that Nick is really, really pushing to try and keep this lead right now. Covey could easily just sit right behind and save some fuel, save some tires, but last lap it looks like Nick was 0.2 faster than him. So I think Nick is really going for it because he knows that these red tires are not going to last as long as the black tire drivers in third and fourth. So it'll be interesting to see what their pit strategy is going to be, if they're going to make it all the way to lap 10 or 11, or if they're going to be sliding around by then.
Yeah, and I think that'll be also, like I said, is to kind of watch, see at what lap kind of the tire switch falls, but kind of between the front runners with the reds and then the third on back with the black. So That being said, though, say Yari has definitely got up to that number 40 machine of Jim Herrick, so Yari's going to definitely be trying to put some pressure on here. And yeah, so yeah, definitely kind of put that trial by fire at a very difficult track here, and saying, yeah, definitely a different sort of racing compared to what we're used to here with Area 51. But like I said, I say hopefully we'll be able to steal you for a couple more, because it's really fun to have you. It's really good to have all of your insight, which we haven't even really been able to pick your brain a lot about, because this is one of those races where there's a lot of buttons and knobs, obviously at the oval races, but then you add into the strategy for the road courses, the tire strategy between reds and blacks, and then of course also the push to passes that we've seen already in use a little bit tonight. So those I think are going to be ones, of course, also where if you're going to be trying to do kind of the double stop that we expect most drivers to kind of do, that extra stop to make it on fuel, versus the two stopper that maybe some fuel savers are doing, kind of what's the risk versus reward of not kind of doing that extra, or I should say using the extra kind of power on that push to pass.
Yeah, for sure. You only got 10 of them, so you got to use them sparingly. But right now I'm watching Craig Forsyth and Luis Gonzalez Nunez, whereas before I thought Craig was trying to save the fuel in the tires. It actually looks like he's trying to go for the position here. He's really hounding the back of Luis Gonzalez Nunez here, and I think Craig might actually not be trying to save as much fuel as we think. So this will be interesting to watch when he pits as well.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the big question mark here is, when do we see the drivers hit pit road? Like, to me, I honestly thought that the red tires might hit pit road already, kind of just use up the reds, and then, like I said, then just go kind of the primary blacks the rest of the way, run kind of the more consistent tire. But right now, the lap times are showing that it's not a bad tire to be on right now still, because it was a 159 flat for Nick DeGroot, 59.37 for Covey Moore, and it's a 59.90s, 59.60s for pretty much them on back. So the switchover hasn't happened yet, but also could just be the outright pace.
It's getting close for sure, because Nick slid all the way through Lake Home. The right, the left, and the right again. The back end of his car was fishtailing big time. So those reds are definitely starting to fall off now for sure. The question is, can he hold on to them for another 5 laps? Through Pujon, another big slide there.
Yeah, so that's right. So maybe, like I said, is it the strategy okay, I'm going to use these, basically kind of run them hard and run them and then just jump off of them? Or, yeah, is he going to have to back down his pace to kind of keep him in a managing temperature to the end? So
Chris Matthews is in the wall down
yeah, some pretty significant damage there. It looks like he's going to have to go ahead and take a tow. And Chris, I'm sorry, we're going to go take a look, see what happened to you on this one. I say he was a little nervous about this, and just a little bit of curb on the exit, and yeah, front suspension. There's not much limping back from that one. Has not been the only one to have some troubles on track, unfortunately. So he's going to take that long tow. Hopefully use that fast repair, as again that battle you talked about for third though continues here with Craig. Also got to give a shout out to Boomer. Appreciate you chiming in here. And so over here helping me is Andrew Wood, one of our Indy perennials. He isn't racing this season, but definitely was open to kind of share his expertise with us. And so you don't have to ask me twice for that. So we got Andrew in here. Maybe also joining the booth with you a few races as well. So definitely appreciate that. And man, William Gunn, I think maybe showing he's got something to prove though, as he ran the fastest lap of the race of 58.20, over a second quicker than anybody else on track. So it just shows, I mean, again, that's the difference of about what, five laps on tires maybe between the 14 and the rest of the field.
Yeah, another thing I noticed too is I think that crossover point has just happened with both Luis Gonzalez Nunez and Craig Forsyth. Both were faster than Nick DeGroot and Covey Moore last lap. So those red tires are starting to die off now, and we'll have to see how long those two front runners can stay out there. Yeah,
that'll be the question. Yeah, how long do they want to do it? And that's the other thing too is, like I said, even if Craig wants to try to run the long run and try to save fuel here on this run, that means he's going to really have to kind of have at some point still have a long stint on the reds. And that's where I was thinking we're okay, kind of do the 5-lapper or whatever it might be on the reds and then go blacks the rest of the way. But so far no change. But I think we just had possibly a little bit of drama. Eric Peterson, I believe. But it looks like he's all right, though, still in that 36. But yes, I had something pop up on my screen that something had happened, but looks like he's still doing all right. So
yeah, he looks all right on my screen, too.
So, all right, do we think they're going to come in this time, though? Andrew, you think they're going to just run this until they have to pit on fuel at this point?
I think they're committed to the strategy. They're going to stay out as long as they possibly can. It's very interesting to see Covey Moore drop as much as he has off the back of Nick, because I thought for sure he'd just be tucking right up on the rear wing here. Let's see what happens. Yep, Nick stays out, Covey stays out. So they are definitely committed to the strategy to push it to lap 10 if possible.
Yeah, it looks like not a lot of strategy. I think these guys, like you said, I think they're going to run this thing all the way out. So again, we're used to the super speedway racing, kind of the low downforce setups on these things. So that being said, though, I'm sure Luis isn't too opposed to having the great sponsorship of SimRace 24/7 showing up on the broadcast right now with HyperX and Butt Kicker as well on the sides of this thing. So, but yeah, right now, like I said, Craig is either keeping him honest or is right where he wants him to be, it's just, yeah, you don't know. Craig is so wily with his strategies where he'll usually try to keep it close to his vest, and like I'm trying to watch and listen, and I don't see anything that screams to me fuel saving like you had mentioned. So I think he just might be doing everything he can right now just to keep touch with that number 15. But you're right, though, the lap times again, though, about half a second quicker for Craig and Luis over Nick and Covey.
I also noticed that Matt Wagner is also in the 159s, matching the leader's times right now, so he's coming back with a vengeance for sure.
Oh yeah, Matt's gonna want to recover from that miscue that he had. He hasn't had the season he's been hoping for. He's had some great runs, just hasn't had the results to show for it yet. And honestly, though, too, I mean, again, he's going from years and years of running in VR. Again, this is kind of our insider info. Years of running in VR to now switching over to triple. So I think this is like race number 2 or 3 here at Area 51 with it. So, I mean, there's still probably a little bit of learning curve and kind of just that getting comfortable with these things again as well. So that I'm pretty impressed, honestly, with what Matt's been able to do so far early on here.
Yeah, switching back to the leaders for a second, I doubt you see these guys come in at this point. If they've stayed out this long, they're definitely going to be wanting to stay out until lap 10, no matter what the situation is. And both of them are not under any pressure at all either. So you would imagine that if they were under pressure, they may have to try and switch their strategy up a little bit. But I do think that the two of them are going to do their best to just run these reds out and see what happens on the black tires from there.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing too, is, I mean, and then the question begs to ask, okay, let's say they go 10 on the reds, could they back their pace down on one of the stints on the black tires to then again make it on a 2-stopper instead of going to that extra 3rd stop? So and the fact that they're committing to where they are now kind of makes me think that might be the thought, or it's just like, okay, we're just going to run far and see how it shakes out, because the other part too is, if they pitted early, they would probably get put into traffic, and that's another thing that's easier said than done, is working through traffic even with the fresher tires. If you catch them at the wrong place, you're going to probably lose a good 2 seconds if they're having their own issues on the racetrack. So I think that might be a bit of a reasoning as well.
But not to mention also that the strategy is going to flip after a while. So you're going to have Luis Gonzalez-Nunez and Craig Forsyth on red tires, likely hounding these guys on black tires. So especially Covey Moore, who has definitely dropped way back from Nick DeGroot. He must be having really a hard time on these tires. And when this strategy flips over, if Covey Moore gets held up whatsoever from any situation with a slower car, Luis Gonzalez-Nunez and Forsyth both are going to want to pounce. I see here that it looks like Gonzalez-Nunez is going to be pitting this lap, unless that's a mistake.
Yeah, I was saying this would be coming to lap 10, so this might be about right there. I say, while we were talking, I was watching Covey Moore, and he had a big bobble as well. So I think those reds are, like you said, are starting to wear off for him. So yeah, we'll watch to see if anybody hits pit road like you were talking about, and see if it's the field or if it's maybe Luis coming in 1 lap early or not. So we'll watch Nick DeGroot, and he's gonna go 1 more. And it looks like Covey's comfortably going 1 more as well. And yep, here comes Luis, the first of our leaders to hit pit road. Again, a very difficult pit road, so you can gain a little bit here, but you have to be careful for that pit speed because that comes in real quick. So this is going to be a great look now to see where he emerges out on track in relation to the field, which right now looks like he'll probably wind up at the back of the pack, just again due to the length of the pit road here and, of course, how slow pit speed is. So we'll watch Luis here. We'll focus on his pit stop real quick. So it will be a quick stop. Looks like he's switching to the reds, though, here. So there's our answer for when he's going to go on to the reds. The answer is right now, and as he comes out of pit road, you saw 1 car go by, and I think he's going to sneak out right behind Jeff Heisong, right in front of Eric Peterson. So yeah, so it drops from about 3rd to 10th with that pit stop there.
Few things. Yari Brubacher has just gotten by Jim Herrick down Camel Straight. Great pass. He set him up right through Eau Rouge perfectly. Perfectly done pass with the draft and everything. So move one spot up for Yari Brubacher. I do like this strategy from Nunez, actually. Run the reds in the middle of the track, or middle of the race here, to try and get any sort of advantage he can on Covey Moore up ahead of him. But the other point I was going to make is that Craig Forsyth is going to be driving the in-lap of his life right now. He is going to want to be pushing the best he can to make sure that Nunez does not get the advantage. But he's in the wake of Covey Moore right now, who seems to still be struggling on these tires. And I don't think that Craig's strategy is working at the moment. I think Nunez had the right strategy there.
Yeah, it's been fun to see because, again, we talked about 10 laps being the magic number. So the question now is, do we see Nick DeGroot come in? Because I'm watching Luis Gonzalez Nunez. He just got around, I think, Jeff Heisong, it looks like, actually. And Chris Chabot next on his list in that number 83. But we're going to go back because, here comes Nick DeGroot. He's on pit road. Covey Moore's on pit road. So here's our answer. Craig Forsyth, this was his pit stop. He decided, all right, this is my run. I'm going 11 laps here. And so he is going to try to make it. And I'm looking behind him, and I don't see a single driver. Oh, nope, here's a second one. Dan Murray, one of his teammates. He's going to try to make that fuel number as well. So we have at least 2 drivers now here, Andrew, who are going to try to make the 2-stop strategy happen. I'm looking the rest of the field. Chris Chabot is in. Jeff Heisong is going to stay out. So Jeff's going to try to run along as well. So we have 3 now. So we do have a few takers. So we got the mixed bag right now. It's going to be fun to see pace versus fuel mileage.
Yeah, this is Craig Forsyth's money lap right here. He had the lap held up by Covey Moore before. This is the lap he needs right here. He needs to have the perfect in-lap to make sure he gets any sort of chance of challenging Luis Gonzalez Nunez, because he got held up big time by Covey Moore on that last lap there.
Yeah, speaking of, Luis Gonzalez on the button here trying to get around Covey Moore. It's going to be a braking duel, and it looks like it's going to be Luis able to get the red tires around and grab that position here. So he will grab that position, move himself up into 4th as they run. It'll eventually be a net 2nd once Jeff Heisong, Dan Morera, and Craig Forsyth hit pit road. So so now we got to watch Craig here because he's still got a little bit more to go until he hits pit road here. And then that'll be the question is, where does Craig come out in relation to these guys? Because like I said, he needs to still be within kind of touching distance. But I think he did the hard work though here early, and now he's going to have to try to make those next 2 runs here on 10 laps each to make it to the end.
Similarly to what I said before, this is Nunez's money lap right here. He's past Covey Moore. He needs to take full advantage of these red tires and get as much of a gap as possible, so that when the black tires equalize out for the last stop, assuming that's what the strategy is going to be, he needs to have as much of an advantage as possible. So this is very, very qualifying type driving from Nunez right here. He has to take advantage as best as he possibly can.
Yeah, I see Dan Murray on pit road as well. Nick DeGroot's going to cycle around here. He'll go back to the lead. And then, you're right, though. Luis Gonzalez, this is where he needs to use these tires up and try to catch Nick DeGroot here. We'll see how quick does he, what his lap times are. Ooh, look at that.
He's leaving pits.
But yeah, Craig coming out of pit road, and this is a great stop for Craig. He's going to come in right behind that 15 machine, right in front of the 87. But Luis Gonzalez, though, that last lap there, Andrew, 157.95, fastest lap of the race, while trying to chase down that number 89 of Nick DeGroot. But again, for Craig, also need to mention, Craig decided he stayed on the primary blacks, didn't go to the reds here, but now he's under attack from Covey Moore. But we'll see, does Craig fight here? And it looks like, no, he's going to back it down. So I think Craig is thinking, this is not my fight. My fight right now is fuel mileage. And I mean, what are the odds here for Craig here, Andrew? Does he try to do another 11 lap stint on the black tires here? That way he only has to run, let's say, 9 laps potentially on the reds for his final stop at the end.
That sounds like a great strategy, but he has to make sure he has any sort of pace to keep up with Nunez's red tire stint. Because if Nunez starts pounding out these 157s, Craig has no response to that. He has to be able to stay somewhat close. So saving fuel here is going to be difficult for Craig. I think the 11-10-10 strategy might be the best. If Craig knows he could do 10 laps on the black tires here and keep his pace up as best he can, but he's got Covey Moore ahead of him. That's going to be giving him a bunch of aero wash there. That's probably going to hurt him a little bit. So right now, Craig's kind of boxed in a corner.
Another interesting thing to note actually was, I didn't notice it until right now actually, Nick DeGroot is on the alternate reds again. I didn't expect to see that. So we kind of talked about the primary blacks were the tire you're going to want to be on, but Nick actually went back onto the alternate reds here. So he's still actually going to have to at least make one pit stop on the primary blacks, as once again Nick steps up his lap at 1:58.4. He was half a second quicker than Luis Gonzalez. So say Nick saw the attack and he's going to respond, as Covey also right on cue with Nick, a 1:58.4, and that's on the primary black tire. So great short pace here from that number 87 machine here. And I believe Jim Herrick may have had no, he looks okay. I thought Jim Herrick had an incident. I think he may have been letting Matt Wagner on by, it looks like. So Matt's now back up to 6th position, recovering nicely after his earlier incident.
Yeah, I'm kind of questioning Nick's strategy here a little bit, but at the same time, I'm wondering if he felt like he had decent pace on the red tires before with no threat from behind. He just wants to run away and hide, so that he may not feel so confident in the black tires that he wants to run the reds as long as he can, so that he can kind of adjust on the blacks and maybe run 90% pace to what he'd run on the reds, and just wait to see if he has any threat from behind, as long as everything ahead of him seems good.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see, and you're right, though. I mean, Craig is definitely keeping the pressure on Covey here. We'll hop on board here once again with that 27, because, yeah, he's definitely keeping this number 87 honest there. And Covey and Z right there, a little bobble as well, just for good measure. And like you said, though, now, is this aggression trying to get around Covey? Is this maybe just him saying, I'm going to kind of try to keep Covey as close as I can to get the best draft I can off of him? I think the obvious question or answer would be, do we see him ever use the push to pass, which so far looks like still is going to be no. So right now, no big strategy changes from these top three. But yeah, I don't know. I'm definitely very intrigued by Craig Forsyth. I feel pretty good about where he is on fuel and where he is on track here, because again, he's only a couple seconds off the lead, about 5 off the lead. And again, he's got that magic extra lap here, so it's going to be fun to see what he's got on the second stint here. But then, like you said, we know for sure Red's on his final stint here if he goes two-stopper.
If I have to guess, I think Craig is sizing up Covey, because he knows that they're both on the black tires. He may feel like he has an advantage somewhere on track, but he's not going to go for anything that's very high risk. So the way that he's driving, I could tell that he's kind of charging corners a little bit to see where he might have an advantage on entry. But at the same time, Luis Gonzalez Nunez is up ahead, setting the pace on the reds. These two guys are just kind of hanging out and waiting to see what happens a few laps from now. I'd be doing the same thing. Looks like we had a car with an issue up ahead there.
That could have been.
Nunez.
So yeah, Chris Matthews, it looks like.
Matthews,
yeah. So he's right now 1 down after Nick DeGroot got around him there. And I think he's going to be due for a pit stop fairly soon here, pitted on lap number 6 when he had to take the tow. But I say, Chris, knowing him, I'll say he's going to try to find a safe spot to let these guys on by. But that's another thing, too, to mention, though, is when you've got the field kind of just gunning down after you, it almost kind of forces you to push a little harder than you'd rather do, because you're like, I don't want these guys to catch me in a bad spot. I got to try to hustle to not have that happen, because I mean, you know, he's going to want to wait till Blanchemont in the back there to let them on by down the straightaway. And I think he's going to succeed in doing so. You see a little bobble there as he tries to nail the power down. So now you'll see Luis and Covey and them go after him.
Covey went very wide there. Craig might try something down here in the chicane. This will be very telling of what Craig's strategy is, because he definitely has the run and he can make the move. But I think if he wants to just save the, he's saving the fuel for sure. I could tell.
So this looks like 11-11-10 or 11-11-9 almost at this point, possibly.
Yeah, so it looks like Craig may just want to run the reds at the end. He might feel comfortable if the track temperature comes down at all, that the reds might last a little bit longer. But Luis is not running away on these red tires like I thought he would be doing. He seems to be kind of hanging a bit, making a few mistakes here and there. Chris Matthews up ahead. That last lap might have thrown his rhythm off a little bit, which I mentioned in the qualifying session. You really need a ton of rhythm here, and you need focus and being able to have confidence in what you're doing. But I think Craig is definitely fuel saving again, and he wants to have the best shot at the best amount of tire life that he possibly can to finish the race.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So I really like where Craig is sitting here, because to me, I think he's going for another 11 lap stint, and then that way there's absolutely zero questions of fuel concerns at the end of this thing. And then like I said, and even that way he has the fuel to burn, where maybe he then can use the push to pass if he has to, because you're not abusing the tires in the turns with the push to pass, because I say he can use it on those very, very long straightaways we have here at Spa. And get a lot of extra top end there. So we've been focusing on the top 4 a fair bit. Let's drop back to 5th here. Jari Brupacher, right now one of our highest climbers there in the 5th position. He's got about 6 seconds to Craig ahead of him. Matt Wagner, though, is closing the gap behind him, though, in that number 6 machine in 6th position. He's about 0.6 quicker than Jari that last time around. These guys both pitted at lap number 10. Jim Herrick sitting in 7th in that number 40 machine. And then in 8th is another one I got to watch here. Dan Murrah pitted at 11 with Craig Forsyth, as did Jeff Hysong in the 18. So these guys, unfortunately, don't have the track position like the other guys like Craig has up ahead of them. So even with one last stop, it may not come as good of a result for them, but we'll have to wait and see how that pans out. Chris Jabot sitting in 10th, one spot from above where he qualified. And then 11th, you've got Eric Peterson, who right now is the last car on the lead lap. And then unfortunately, we saw those early tows for the 14 of William Gunn and the 92 of Chris Matthews. They sit 12th and 13th, respectively. And it looks like Joseph DeCiro actually did not make the race here tonight. So unfortunately, he will be marked in 14th position. So that is the drivers, 13 drivers that are still on track here, as we'll jump back up, though, to this top 3 battle, because these guys are hard to look away from.
Yeah, I wanted to comment on Matt Wagner. It looks like he kind of stabilized out a little bit. He's still running a little bit faster than Jari up ahead of him, but he has definitely lost touch to the top 4 for sure, whereas it looked like he was really charging before. So if he started the race on the red tires, which I'm sure he did, he definitely lost touch somehow. That might have been some traffic situation, but I know once he got by that Jeff Hysong, Eric Peterson group there, he was starting to close up a little bit. So I'm not really sure what's happened to him. Maybe he had a rough pit stop, but I see Luis Gonzalez Nunez miss Bruxelles there. And I have to say that Nick de Groot's times right now, he's not pushing by any means, but he's definitely maintaining that gap. And as long as Kobe Moore and Craig Forsyth are behind Luis Gonzalez Nunez, they're hemorrhaging time to the leader. As you see, Kobe Moore is going for a move right now. I think Luis might have cooked his tires. Yeah,
that was a great move and great timing there by Kobe to get that position. So now the question is, for Craig, we know he's been riding pretty much behind Kobe. Does he feel like he can do the same now behind Luis, or does this a time where he says, I got to probably get around this 15 to keep up with that 87? So, as once again goes wide here. So like you said, this could be an opportunity for Craig here. Although, again, got to watch it, because it's kind of, you're going to have both these drivers having a draft. So we'll watch Craig. And this time, I don't see him rolling out of as much. So I think Craig probably wants to make the move.
He has to make the move here. Yes, he has to get by, because he knows that he could probably outdo Kobe. Luis outbraked. I saw immediately as he hit the brakes that he was not going to make that corner. And there goes Craig up into 3rd place.
And that was the exact thing Craig wanted to see happen there. Because you're right, though, because Craig now needs to keep pace with Kobe. Because, like I said, they're both on the primary black tires, so they know the pace fall-off isn't going to happen to them as bad as it does to Luis. So, so I think, like I said, that was critical for Craig in his fuel mileage approach, and B, for track position. Because, like you said, though, Nick de Groot, we haven't even been talking about him for the last 5 minutes, because he's just gone. He's almost 6 seconds up, and saying he's talked about he feels like the road courses were kind of his struggles. He felt like he didn't really have the pace on the road courses like he does at the ovals, but he must have been doing something either before tonight's race or during the off season, because it seems like his road racing pace has definitely increased dramatically.
I had to wonder if Luis Gonzalez Nunez's pace was really holding these guys back from what they really could do, because I do believe that Craig and Kobe could keep pace or even go a little bit faster than Nick, especially because Nick is on another stint of red tires. Those tires must really be screaming right now. So look to see if Kobe and Craig can close that gap a little bit. It looks like Kobe in particular has really picked up the pace. He's really kind of slamming his sector times right now.
Yeah, it'll be fun. It's like I said, they're about halfway through the lap, so we'll get another lap around soon. That being said, we are halfway through here. We obviously a 31 lap race. We got 15 to go, so we have made half distance here at Spa. I'm still watching the gap as well from Matt Wagner and Jari Brupacher. It's been slowly but surely closing. It's down to about 2 seconds now between those guys, and it's only 2.5 seconds between Matt and Jim Herrick there, who sits still in 7th, and Dan Moreira a couple more seconds back, 3.5 back to Jim. So again, I'm going to be very intrigued to see where everybody kind of cycles out after pit stops complete here. I think that's going to be a telltale to see kind of if this two-stopper is going to work for drivers other than Craig Forsyth, notably Dan Moreira and Jeff Heisong. I think Dan is going to be the one that kind of has the chance to gain the most in that 26.
Yeah, shout out to William Gunn, too. He had the fastest lap of all drivers last lap, but unfortunately that incident early on in the race definitely hurt him. He's on the primary blacks too, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, he definitely would have been up there with these top three if not for that incident in Eau Rouge there. And I'm sure he's kicking himself for making such an aggressive move and putting so much trust in someone that he hoped would yield to him at some point there.
Yeah, so just the way racing goes too. You wind up right together again later on in the race. That's the way racing is. You wind up always closer to the guys that you're with. And one thing that we do need to mention, you talk about the lap times maybe holding things back a little bit. Last time by, Covey Moore was nearly 1 second faster than than Nick DeGroot there. A 59.60 for Nick, a 58.74 for Covey, a 58.70 for Craig. So yeah, the pace definitely coming back to these guys as they brought the gap still within 5 seconds. Again, I don't think they'll drop that gap to 1 to 2 seconds before pit stops, but it does show that there was a lot of pace left in that 27 and the 87 here once they got around Luis, because he's dropped about 4 seconds back off those two.
Well, we know Craig's going to be on the red tires at the end. Covey is a question mark of what tires he might choose. It depends on if he's able to do any sort of fuel saving that last stint behind Nunez there. If he's able to go 11 laps, I'm sure he'll throw the reds on at the end too. I can only imagine that if Nick did 2 stints on reds, you can only guess that Covey would do the exact same thing. So Craig and Covey, you can predict will be on reds. Nick will be on the black tires, which he hasn't run yet. Unknown temperatures, unknown conditions. It could really come down to the wire here.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun to see because, like I said, I feel pretty good about Craig on his fuel strategy. But again, we don't know. Like, we know he's done his 11 lap stint. To us, that should mean he's able to do 2 more 10s to the end. However, like I said, if he does another 11 laps, I think Jari Brupacher, yeah, he missed the bus stop there. He's trying to get this thing looped around. Unfortunately, that's going to cost him a handful of spots. Promotes Matt Wagner back up into the top 5. Let's go back, though, and take a look from Jari to see if we can watch what happened here as he headed into that bus stop. Because this is one of the biggest braking zones here at this track. Because, I mean, you're going about probably 180, 190 plus. And you got to get this thing down to about 30 miles an hour or so. As we'll speed up just a little bit. And we'll see if it's maybe just rear brake or maybe just a little too greedy on the throttle. Oh, maybe a little too much curb, it looks like to me there, yeah, Andrew.
It looks like he grabbed the curb on the right and he grabbed the curb on the left, and he got on the throttle a little too early there, for sure. That's what it looks like.
And this is also the point where those reds are starting to give up as well. So, but look at Matt Wagner. They're having to make that sharp left to sneak around in there. So great job by Matt to avoid that.
Great avoidance there, for sure.
Yeah, and Jim Herrick had to do the same there to get by. So promotes Matt up to 5th, Jim Herrick up to 6th, Dan Moreira up to 7th after all that's said and done. This continues to be the closest battle on track between these two right here. And they still are ever closing on Nick DeGroot. It was, again, about just under a second, about 7/10 of a second, looks like last time by between the 89 and the 87. But yeah, Craig definitely tagging along here with these guys. So what I was trying to say, though, before that happened, though, was, yeah, so even if Craig did the 11 lap now and then let's say does 11 again this time, there's no guarantees that Nick and Covey say, okay, we got to save 1 lap and it's going to be maybe this final stint of the race here. So it's not a cakewalk for Craig at this point. He doesn't know what kind of numbers that Nick and Covey are working, and that could be what Nick's doing here too, is maybe he's actually run this one long on the reds somehow, as he's had all those seconds to play with. So it's going to be fun to see what the strategy and what the right call is going to be for these guys, because next 2 laps is probably going to pretty much tell us what the decision is going to be.
I mean, Nick's had no opportunity to save any fuel at all, unless he's been lifting into corners, which might account for some of his slower lap time. So I think Nick is going to have to come in at the end of this lap. I don't think he's going to make it unless he's doing something that we haven't caught. But he's going to. I would say that if he's done a red stint, he's going to save a long stint for black. So let's see if Nick comes in this lap. And he's, again, as we mentioned on last pit stop, he's got to have the out lap of his life, in lap and out lap of his life.
Yeah, exactly right. And yeah, right now, like I said, I hopped on board, and yeah, definitely don't see any significant fuel savings being done on board. At least, obviously, we can't see all the things. We know if they're on the push to pass button, we know things like that. But other than that, yeah, we don't get to see everything. And I think that would be a telltale, though, for them trying to kind of get their big lap in, would be if we see the push to pass kind of on the in lap, especially. I feel like that's kind of the time. If you're going to burn the fuel, burn it right before you hit pit road there, if you have that spare 10th gallon or two, probably. So what I'm going to do is once we get back down the over to Blanchimont, I want to see, we'll listen in to see and watch to see, is he maybe using that push to pass there, and that'll probably be our telltale for our push to pass. So let's do that right now. Let's hop back on, and no push to pass yet here.
Based on my data, he hasn't used any push to pass yet. I still see him having 10.
Yeah, so that's going to be a big thing to see. Unfortunately, on the broadcast side, we don't get to see all the info. So I don't know if maybe you have some software that maybe lets us kind of cheat a little bit. Unfortunately, we don't get to see who has it, but this will be a good answer right now. So if he ducks in, he is indeed coming in. So like you said, this in theory will be that this next time by, that's going to be his long stop. And Covey's in too. So this is Craig again. He's going to go at least to 10 to go. I'm wondering, can Craig go to 9 to go possibly? We'll do one more time. Actually, I think we had a couple incidents on track here. I think Luis Gonzalez here. Yeah, I think Luis Gonzalez. I think Jim Herrick was involved as well. Yeah, we had a big incident here. I think I think Matt Wagner just hit pit road for his scheduled stop. But let's go back, though, because I think we missed something between, I believe, Luis Gonzalez and Jim Herrick here. So we'll focus on Luis for the moment. And we'll see where Jim Herrick gets involved in this one.
I think Jim Herrick also called pit lane. It was a single car incident for Luis.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, loops it around there, and there's Jim. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, Jim just gets around it. So luckily, just a little spin for the 15. I say not too much harm or foul on that one. But we're going to go back over to Craig, because when that was happening, I was going to try to watch and listen to Craig and see if he was using his push to passes to see me, like I said, kind of get that big in lap.
It sounds like, from what I'm seeing, Craig still got all 10 of his push to passes as well. So interesting, because you're absolutely right. You want to try and maximize your in and out lap as best you can down these long straightaways, and it doesn't seem like these guys are using the push to pass if they're not mapped or something like that.
Yeah, so I think, and for Craig, it might be. To me, if I'm going to switch over to Blanchimont here on the in car and listen and watch again. If he's on the button here, oops, wrong button. If he's on the button here, I think that tells us he's coming in this time. If not, I think he tries to stretch it one more lap. I think he's saving, because the other thing is, yes, he has to go on the reds, but he also then will have a little bit of fuel to play with as well, and that can mean his last stint he can be aggressive, whereas everybody else has to do their saving on the final stint. So I think Craig's going to stay out this time here, Andrew. I think he's going to come in next time by, but knowing Craig, he finds ways to prove me wrong all the time. And okay, no, there he is. So we're going to have 2 11-lap stints for Craig Forsyth, which is going to give him a very nice and doable 9-lap stint to the end, where he can probably go on the full aggressive approach here to the end.
I'm watching his push to pass as well, because I'm curious to see if he tries his best to maximize, because right now he's about 20 seconds ahead of DeGroot and 23 seconds ahead of Covey Moore. So he's either going to come out right between them, or just behind Covey Moore, or just ahead of him, that Covey Moore will get him on the warmer tires.
And Dan Marrera as well. Dan's going for the double 11 as well here. He's going to try to pit at 9 to go. And importantly as well, he's only 3 seconds ahead of Nick DeGroot, so he could actually wind up slowing Nick a little bit down on this lap. Not intentionally, but just by where he is. I can tell you, though, Yari Brupacher, Jeff Heisong, they pitted here with 10 to go, so they should be okay, but again, probably not quite at the number. But I got to tell you, though, Andrew, Craig Forsyth, last time I was his fastest lap of the race of 58.57, and that's this is like at the very end. Of course, he's light on fuel, but yes, I mean, that tells me he was definitely saving tire as well.
Yeah, you have to imagine that as soon as he was starting to save the fuel behind both Nunez and Covey Moore there, he was definitely doing his best to save his tires for the very end. So the black tires must really come in right at the last second there for the fastest lap.
Yeah, so it's a great lap for Craig. And Chris Jabot also on pit road in that number 83 machine at 10 to go as well, so he should be good. Let's hop on board. And again, the button not on here for Craig, so maybe he doesn't have the amount of fuel to even make it that little extra fuel burn. He's probably having to play it safe maybe to make it just onto pit road, or he's decided, you know what, I want to save all my push to passes until this final stint when I got those reds. So I suspect we'll see him hit pit road here, so we'll stay on board here and watch the pit road entry. And it looks like, yep, there's the right-hand turn, then back to the sharp left, and it looks like he's going to get in safe and clean. Now just got to make sure he doesn't speed.
Yeah, the gaps have been the same to Nick and Covey all lap 2 for what I'm looking at, so he definitely is running the same lap time as them, but we'll be able to see the monster lap time for both Nick and Covey on these black tires, if they're a monster lap or not.
Yeah, Dan Moreira also on pit road. And you're right, though, that is something to note, though, is that, yeah, Nick is on the blacks like we suspected. Covey as well, he decided he'd go to the black. It was a 159.18, whereas Craig just rolling out of pit road now, and I think he's going to cycle in right behind Covey Moore here. So now let's hop on board with Craig here as he builds up speed. And again, how
Covey's
aggressive.
on push to pass.
Yep, Covey's on the button here. He's trying to break away from Craig here because this is kind of his chance here. And Craig, again, staying off the button.
If Craig is smart here, he go on push to pass as well, but he might be unsure of what the red tires are going to be like. You're going to see a big push here in Lake Home.
That's true, yeah. He's got these things up to temperature first, feel comfortable with them, and then get after him. But are you a little concerned with Craig saving the reds till the end just because, again, we know that there is the fall-off at the end of this thing? Or do you think, I mean, because now it's basically, yeah, it's the reds fall-off versus the blacks fuel saving, because Covey and Nick here, they have to go 11 laps on the stint to make it. Craig only has to go 9 laps, but he's on the reds. So this is going to be a chess match.
From what I saw from Nick and Covey in the first stint, it seemed like the reds started to fall off lap 5 or 6 or so. So Craig really has a lot of time here to play with to try and find his way around Covey, who is definitely slower on pace at the onset of the black tires. In fact, you might see him try and make a move at the chicane here if he uses his button. Well, let's see if Covey uses his.
Yeah, I say Craig still not on the button. Covey not on the button either. So far they decided not yet. I'm a little surprised that Craig maybe didn't think he was close enough to make the move here. Maybe he wants to get a little closer, and yeah, maybe out of turn number 1, then he'll make the move out of Eau Rouge and Radion. So we'll see. But right now Covey still holds onto that spot. But I think the sooner he gets by Covey, the better. But maybe he decided it was too soon to make the move, because then Covey could try to kind of counter on him down the front stretch. So this is going to be fun here. I think this is where we're going to see it.
It looks like Covey has closed the gap to Nick as well, so he's definitely pushing to try and get away from Craig because he knows Craig's on those reds. We'll look to see if anyone's on the button here.
Yeah, still kind of cycling between them.
Nobody yet.
So far, no buttons. So
Craig's on the button right now.
There it is. Okay, so he timed it. He's waiting. Okay, now's the time. Does Covey respond? Does he see it? Nope. Covey has not hit the button yet. So this is Craig's chance here, and he's going to get a great run. Covey's not going to make any big blocking moves. So I think Covey saw that was happening, and Craig going to jump into second position now. So now he's got to try to gain 2.5 seconds to get to Nick DeGroot now to have a chance to win this race. As further back in 8th position, Jeff Heisong goes purple, fastest lap of the race at 1:57.76. That's a monster lap out of that 18 machine.
He's on the red tires, so it's no surprise that he's using these tires to their best ability, and also he's on the button right now going down Kemmel Straight.
Yeah, say Jeff, same thing, trying to get everything he can now. Again, he went at lap 21, so he went a lap earlier than Craig, but he should still be good to go now, 10 laps to the end. So yeah, so I think everybody's saving the push pass till the end, kind of the opposite of what we see at IndyCar. Usually those guys, they're talking about how many got burned at the very beginning. They don't have anything to defend with or attack with. Maybe the Area 51 guys a little bit more on the loop of like, hey, let's save these things till the end, then we go after it. But right now it's definitely a top 3 breakaway, because you got to go now about 11 seconds back from Covey Moore to Matt Wagner, though, who's done a great recovery, though, to get all the way back up into 4th. So again, great job by Matt to stay after it here. Jim Herrick still rounds out our top 5. So at this point, yeah, now it's just who can basically go to the end here. We know that everybody that pitted at 20, we know they need to make this an 11-lap stint here. Let's watch lap times as Nick DeGroot crosses line at 59.7, 58.06 for Craig, 1.7 seconds faster that last lap there.
One thing I noticed, Luis Gonzalez Nunez has dropped all the way to 9th place, and I'm looking back at the replay now, and after that spin in the chicane, he towed back to pit lane, which I found weird because he didn't hit anything. I was wondering if maybe he was out of fuel and couldn't actually pull out from that situation.
That is a very good possibility because, again, that was towards the very end of the fuel run, so maybe that car being light on the brakes, maybe a little bit too much rear brake. Yeah, that definitely could have played a role in it. So that's a tough one for Luis being up front for so long tonight, and then just before the last pit stop, everything goes wrong. And unfortunately, I can kind of feel for him because I had a similar situation last night in my own race not with Indy cars, but with stock cars, where spun out on pit road entry, was sputtering on entry, and then by the time the car kind of got to where I could try to get it righted again, I was out of fuel. I had to take a tow myself, so it was not a good evening for me last night over at Twin Ring Motegi. But still, a lot of fun, but just unfortunate mistakes and kind of exponentiated. Just got a little worse and worse after all was said and done. But right now, though, I say now Craig and Nick here. This is going to be a battle because if you're Nick here, do you maybe let Craig use his draft to save fuel and still use that tow to kind of stay in touch with them, knowing that his tires are going to fall off at the very end? I mean, how do you strategize this if you're that 89 car?
Yeah, Craig is flying right now. He's 1.7 seconds faster last lap than Nick. And Nick has to be kind of playing every scenario in his mind right now of what he could do to win this race, because he knows that Craig is on the red tires. He's coming for it. But he also has to realize that those tires are going to fall off, so he has a chance once that situation comes up. And yeah, I would imagine that Nick is holding all of his push-to-passes still. He has all 10 of them in the bank. Craig's still got a bunch, but yeah, he's going to have to just kind of play to see what Craig's behavior is behind him.
Yeah, I kind of feel like for Nick, it may be in his best interest to let Craig by and then just use the draft to your advantage here. And that way, then, like I said, at the end, when Craig's tires are maybe starting to get a little bit toasty, a little difficult to drive, then you make the move on the blacks while also using the draft for these couple, maybe 5-6 laps here to just save that little bit of extra fuel. But unfortunately, or not unfortunately, but right now he's opting to kind of hold that track position. Do need to mention, though, it looks like Eric Peterson, Chris Matthews on pit road. Eric Peterson, a little bit of wing damage. I think he may have had an incident also that caused this, unfortunately. The 92 car I think his is a scheduled stop for 92. Unfortunately for Eric, looks like a lengthy stop as it's already up to 50 seconds for Eric. So not the night he was looking for in that 36 machine. And right now the next closest battle is between Dan Morera here and Jim Herrick. This is a top 5 battle here. So these are teammates, but you always want the top 5 bragging rights there, especially when you got your teammate going for the win possibly.
Yeah, back to the Craig and Nick situation. Craig is lifting in these corners, so I'm not really quite sure what's going on here, but Craig might have realized he's been toasting his tires a bit too much, and he's trying to figure out what he can do to get ahead of Nick here. But he's got to act, because you can't really save the tires once they're gone. So if he's going to make a move, he's got to make a move now.
Yeah, I wonder if he's trying to do similar as Covey as he sends it, man. These guys are oh, Nick on pit road. That is not what we expected to see there. So Nick knew he couldn't make it. He decided to jump into pit road. So this is a big development. Covey as well. This is not something I expected to see here. So I think this kind of tells the tale. And again, I don't know if they maybe knew that this was going to happen or not, but I would have done that when they were on the reds, not on the blacks. So this is a bit of a surprise to me. But for Craig now, he's just got to kind of just back down the pace, because he's got 15 seconds to play with now over new second place Matt Wagner.
Yeah, I mean, Nick was definitely pushing the pace there, but I thought he was going to be able to play with the numbers to make sure that he made 11 laps. Covey was easily able to stay behind Craig and make up the time, so the Covey one is definitely a very strange one for me.
The important thing for Nick, though, is he does come out still in the third position. He's only 3 seconds back off of Matt Wagner. And again, Matt pitted on 20 as well, so if Matt's going to try to save and make it to the end, this could still promote Nick to still have a top 2 finish here after it's all said and done. Kobe Moore is going to have a little extra work to do because he's got to get around Jim Herrick, he's got to get around Dan Marrera, and we know Dan can make it to the end because, again, he also pitted at lap 22 like Craig. So, yeah, this is going to be very intriguing now to see. I say at this point, barring any mistakes, like I said, knock on wood and no commentator's curse, but for Craig, he just needs to be smart, make no mistakes here. I mean, he's got 15 seconds to play with at this point, so I would say you just be smart, hit your marks, and just kind of cruise to the end if you can. Easier said than done, of course, though. But actually, with that, Andrew, I mean, as a racer, and especially a fast one like you are, is it harder for you to kind of run clean and solid laps while trying to back your pace down just to play it safe? Are you kind of better in the zone when you're maybe running the 9/10 kind of, maybe going, instead of not going 10 out of 10, maybe going 9 out of 10?
Well, as soon as you go into a race, you know if it's going to be some sort of fuel strategy for sure. And you just have to commit to it from the green flag. So you take the green, you immediately start saving fuel in any way you can. You get behind someone, you back your pace down comfortably enough that you can run, mid-corner speed perfectly. It's just something that you have to commit to. It's not something that you decide on lap 3 or 4, maybe I should save some fuel. So if it's really close, like guys like Craig and Dan Marrera that have been saving fuel here, they know immediately from the green flag that they have to do whatever they can to save the fuel. So anytime they're in a situation where they're in a group of cars and they know they can lift a little bit early and still maintain their position, that's what they're going to go for.
Yeah, and right now, you see Kobe Moore on the button here, going to try to get by Jim Herrick. I say both of them had a little bit of a difficult difficult time there through Eau Rouge, as they now, it looks like Kobe's going to grab that spot, but man, we're going to jump back up to second because
what's
Nick.
even more of a head scratcher is that both Kobe and Nick are on black tires. What is that call about?
Well, I did look at the pit stops. They did take fuel only, so it was just a splash of fuel. So instead of a 9,
they didn't switch the tires.
Correct. Okay. Yeah, it was a 4-second stop for, or 4.7 stop for Nick, 5.1 for Kobe. So they went fuel only, saved themselves a little bit of time. So the black tires actually does make sense there. I follow that now. And right now, I'll say if indeed Nick couldn't have saved the fuel to get to the end, he's right on the back bumper of Matt, or rear wing, I should say, of Matt Wagner here by only about, 5/10 now. Matt's on the reds. He's going to have to fuel save to make it to the end. So Nick looks like will still wind up back up into second. Again, unfortunately, doesn't get a chance to defend his lead against Craig there with his pit stop. But so right now, Nick's not going to lose a ton of spots as he's on the button here, going to try to catch that 6 machine. And we'll jump back to Kobe because Kobe's now going to set his sights on Dan Marrera. Again, Dan won't be as easy, though, because Dan can also make it to the end, and Kobe also on the button. So the green lights are definitely lighting up here.
Dan has used his last push to pass, and Kobe's got 4 more. So
that's going to be tough sledding.
This might be difficult, yeah. And Nick has used 5 in the last 2 laps. So he's really trying to find anything he can here.
And Jim Herrick on pit road, so also couldn't make it to the end. So that leaves another driver having to do the 3-stopper, and we're going to hop back on board with Nick because he is all over that rear wing. He's on the button as well, so I think that for this point for Matt Wagner, unless he goes on the button to defend, which I don't think he can.
He's on the button right now.
Oh, wow, I didn't expect to see Matt on the button. You're right, though, but Nick is, and he's got the draft and the button. Matt's going to protect, though. We'll see. Now it's going to be that braking duel.
Black versus red tires.
Oh, Kobe Moore in the wall here. Big hit for Kobe. We'll have to see what happened to him. He looks like contact between he and Dan
Matt
Marrera.
And Nick are both off track.
Oh man, it's all lighting up. So let's go back first. Let's see what happened to Dan and Kobe. So we're gonna back it up a little bit, going through Eau Rouge. And looks okay initially. Let's see. I think. Oh yeah, just they come in together, both fighting for the same release there, and then just brutal hits for the 2 of them. As you see the 87, you see the 26 machines there. I mean, there's obviously no way they can't drive back from that. These things have to tow. It's also then allows, you see these other guys, Jari Brubacher, he's got to try to find a way to pick through the carnage here. But yeah, while all that was going on, let's go back now to that battle between Nick DeGroot and Matt Wagner here. So we'll
Yeah,
pick.
They both tried to outbreak one another. It looks like.
Yeah, kind of a breaking duel. We'll have to jump back live to that here in just a second. But so here's that breaking duel, and yeah, Nick sends it in deep, and then yeah, just overshoots it. Look at the slide here, right? They both go off there. Matt jumps back to the track there, but yeah, look at the respect given by Nick DeGroot. Says, yeah, I know, I went off track to gain a position. I'll get it back here. Let's go back live.
They're doing the same thing. Same. Nick is wide. Matt's on the inside. Matt's not going to make the corner.
Nick's going to have the short distance around and gets the power down, so move Nick up into second. Great battle, great respect as well between the two of them.
Absolutely. That's a lot of respect right there. Matt knew he was going to miss the corner, and Nick didn't even bother turning in, so it all kind of played out the way that it really should have there, but that was a great battle, that entire lap between the two of them. They both were giving it everything they possibly have, and Nick is on the button to boot right now.
Yeah, now Nick's trying to break that draft from Matt. And again, Matt has to be careful because, again, this is his fuel save stint, so he can't go full sender. He's got to make sure he can make 11 more laps because while we've been watching all this, we're 2 to go. And 19 seconds ahead of these guys is Craig Forsyth. I say he's loving life right now. But definitely heartbreakers, though, for Covey Moore, Dan Marrero. They're battling for a top 5 tonight. Just, yeah, like I said, fighting for the same real estate, unfortunately. Beneficiaries, though, going to be Yari Brupacher and Jeff Heisung move up to 4th and 5th. But remember, Jim Herrick, he came in on and hit pit road to take a splash of fuel as well. Actually, I think he took tires because here comes Jim. He's going to look for a top 5 here. Took a peek.
Spot on Jeff here.
Not yet, but I say this could happen because Jeff pitted on 21, Jim at 28. So I think Jim's got the fresher tires here as Craig is heading down to Blanchemont here for the second to last time. As like I said, he's just got to keep a pretty wheel for the rest of this one. So we'll focus on this battle for the moment. Then we're going to have to switch over to Craig here shortly to make sure we don't ignore our current leader in this thing in the 27 machine, as he does indeed head through Blanchemont here to get just about to get to this white flag here.
Yeah, back to the incident with Covey and Dan Marrero there. Unfortunately, like as a driver, I know exactly what Covey was going through there. He wanted to try and measure up exactly where Dan was going to be past Eau Rouge. He definitely had a bit of target fixation there, just kind of glancing at where that car was, and he couldn't react fast enough and just drove right into him, unfortunately. And that happens. It's just one of those things in racing where you're trying to measure up and things come at you so fast, especially in these fast Indy cars, and there just was no time to measure it up.
Oh man, Jeff Heisung just hangs on to that car as Jim Herrick was able to get by with those fresher tires, but that I think was honestly a race-saving save for Jeff Heisung because that car was almost out of control there. So that moves Jim up into the top 5 here. But up front though, Craig Forsyth on his final lap, and yeah, talk about backing the pace down. 2:01.42 his last lap. He's leaving nothing to chance here. Probably make sure he's has enough fuel in the tank to maybe do some burnouts at the end of this thing. That's how much of a lead he's got to work with. So Craig, I mean, he worked
part
the
of
numbers.
Part of that has to do with the red tires too. If he was burning everything he could to catch Nick, so he might have felt a slide or two on the last lap and just said, you know what, we're just going to lift into every corner and just bring this thing home.
Yeah, like I said, he's got 16 seconds to play with, so he can easily bring it home from here. Like I said, just got to get a couple more turns here, and then he'll feel a lot more comfortable. But man, I mean, he did the hard work early. He saved the fuel twice, and it looked like it was going to be kind of nip and tuck between him and Nick DeGroot, but unfortunately, Nick just couldn't save the fuel he needed to in the end. And yeah, Craig's looks like he's going to kind of bring this one home here as he comes through Blanchemont for the final time. But yeah, great job, great strategy by Craig to be able to pull this off here. I'm still peeking around. Actually, it looks like Yari Brupacher. Oh, I think, did Matt Wagner have an issue?
Eric Peterson's wrecked somewhere.
Yeah, I think a couple things happened because, yeah, Matt Wagner also had a moment. But here comes Craig, though, out of the final turn. Going to win tonight at Spa. 2 wins in a row now for the 27 machine. And we'll go back here to Nick DeGroot here is going to bring it home in the second position here as he comes through the hairpin. And we've got a battle, though, for third because look at Yari Brupacher. Oh, no, Yari gets loose through the Blanchemont there, loops it around, loses the front wing. But he should be able to grab a gear and get going again. Matt Wagner will hold on to the podium spot in third after all that's said and done. Now Yari's going to try to hang on to fourth here because here comes Jim Herrick at the head of steam. And it looks like Yari's just going to have enough to hold on to fourth as Jim Herrick will hold off Jeff Heisung. So Jari Brubacher fourth, Jim Herrick top 5. Man, those last couple laps, everything was kicking off here at the end.
Yeah, Matt's out of gas.
I mean, you only need enough to cross the line, right? Like I said, these guys all running out of fuel. Craig Forsyth, he's going to have some extra fuel just to roll around here. Like I said, maybe even have enough for a burnout. Just, again, just great job by Craig working the numbers. And like, you talked about it from the get-go. He's a strategy machine in that number 27 car. And I think he's going to actually, looks like he's going to park it here and maybe do a little bit of extra celebrating here, maybe waiting for a teammate. Oh, yeah, looks like a little post-race chat between he and Nick DeGroot here. But, man, what a battle those two put on tonight. And just strategy did the job here tonight for Craig.
I can't believe that this came down to an actual fuel strategy situation that Nick couldn't dig his way out of. I thought for sure that he was going to be able to figure something out in that last stint, especially because he had that big lead, but it just wasn't enough for him to do.
Yeah, it was definitely a lot of strategy tonight. So now what we got to do is, actually, before we pull up our interviews, we'll go ahead and first pull up our final. Actually, I think we're still waiting for our final results. Got a couple of drivers trying to make it through the start-finish line still to finish their official results here. I think we've just got it. So now we can formally show, Eric Peterson as he just sends it off into turn 1 full tilt there. Matt Wagner, though, finishing third. So Craig Forsyth, our winner by 15 seconds over Nick DeGroot. Matt Wagner, third. And then you got Jari Brubacher holding off Jim Herrick. Jeff Heisong rounds out our top 6 here. And then you've got Luis Gonzalez Nunez, Chris Jabot, William Gunn, our lead lap finishers. And actually, hats off to William Gunn coming back to the lead lap here. Didn't even notice that as well. Final finisher this evening. All right, now let's pull in our victims here. We're going to kick it off with Matt Wagner. And Matt, you kind of had to save the fuel saving till the very end there on your final stint. And it was closer. I mean, you had Jari breathing down your neck. I think there's a couple other things we probably missed there at the end because it looked like there was a couple incidents there. I think Eric Peterson may have had an issue because you lost a lot of track position there that puts you kind of under attack from Jari. I mean, just take us through the race. Unfortunately, obviously an early issue, but a great job recovering it to bring home a podium. I mean, take us through the night.
So I had an off-road excursion. I was able to save the car, which thankfully enough, thank you, 3 monitors. It saved my life. Appreciate that guy, by the way. So cold tires was the big definition here. How I lost the car. I pushed too hard too early, and that's the result of overdriving the car and putting yourself in a bad spot and falling to the back, and you will pay for it every time. So around the pit stop, we're coming down to the end of the race, and I was discussing with William in the chat here. So we were talking about fuel, and he said how I can make it. I said to myself, I don't think I can make it. So I started saving really hard, shutting the car off. Some straightaways I've been shutting the car on and off, so it kind of helped. So I barely squeaked across the line. Like I had like maybe 0.05 of gas left and barely crossed the line. It was just amazing how I finished that race.
Did you have any thoughts about trying to do the fuel saving on either the first or middle stints, and also the tire strategy of starting with reds and then going to the blacks at the end? I mean, how did you come up with kind of the kind of what you felt like would be your best strategy of which tire to start on, which fuel saving stint to save on? I mean, was that just one of those like on the fly type things, where like at this point, if I want to make it on one less stop at the very end, you say, okay, well, I'm going to do it with the reds? Or, I mean, how did you kind of manage that decision there?
So during the runs there, I had no draft help. That kind of hurt me a lot. Hurt me a ton. So my first initial game plan was to, just go hard, see what I can do, and don't do any stupid mistakes, and keep it on track. And come to find out, when it comes to that third stint, I started scratching my head. I said, dude, I think we can probably try and push it. That was my whole mindset the whole race. That was so tedious. It was wow. I'm just overwhelmed. I finished third.
Matt, I'd like to ask, when you felt in the first stint there that the tires were really starting to go off, at what point in the fuel run did you feel like it was going completely awry for you, where you were sliding the car a lot?
Uh, Not really. It all depends on what everybody puts their settings. This setup is very adjustable. Um, I had it set up so I wouldn't, just overdrive the car and start sliding the car a lot. I know some of the guys were sliding the car a lot in front of me. To me, uh, on the blacks, I actually felt quite worse. Actually, I'm really surprised that actually the reds felt a lot better than the blacks. Uh, Usually it's the other way around. I'm just a little surprised by that because I did a lot of testing with the blacks, and maybe it's different track temperature here today that we tested at. It was a little bit cooler than when I tested. So it's being sliding out a lot. It was just it wear your tires out a lot, and my lap times would drop off dramatically. I tried to keep it up in the 151s. No, I'm sorry, 159s. Yeah, I was close to about 2 minutes for sometimes on the blacks. Sometimes the reds toward the end of the run.
Yeah, it seems like at some of these medium speed turn tracks that the blacks seem to have a weird slip angle. I've noticed this too at places like Mid Ohio at some of these faster corners. Yeah, it's very interesting that you bring that up. I would have thought that there's enough of a heat cycle through the tires that it would actually kind of benefit to run longer on them here. But now that you bring that up, I kind of see what you're getting at, that it's not just a car setting thing for sure. It's just the way that the tires go through their heat cycle down these long straightaways. So yeah, it's interesting that the reds looked off, because we definitely saw the guys that were on longer stints on the reds trying their best to hold on to the back of the car, especially
Yeah.
in the last couple laps of the stint. So
hmm
interesting.
Yeah. So you got your tracks like like Skip Barber and Zandvoort is one of them. Yeah, it runs really good on the black. So I'm not sure if you drove there. An IndyCar is actually pretty good. I wish we could run there, but think some of the guys really don't own the track. But like your shorter tracks, like Watkins Glen, I think it really sucks on the black. So like your short, road courses. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it was a really fun one though tonight, Matt. Like I said, a great recovery though after the, like I said, a little bit of a miscue early on, but fought back, able to get the top three tonight. So definitely want to give you the floor here for any thanks and shouts for that run or for that podium tonight.
Oh, well, once again, I say this every week. Not every week here. I get a chance to come here on the podium. So I'd like to thank my parents for watching. You guys for broadcasting. Andrew, I'm going to watch the replay. I'm going to see how you did on your debut. You're really knowledgeable about these cars, and I expect great things on the broadcast when I go rewatch it. And shout out to actually my new employee over at my work. Did a phenomenal job today, and we were under the pressure. And I told him to take a look at the broadcast. I said, I usually do this just for fun. And shout out to my new coworkers over at my job. So y'all take care and have yourself a good night here.
All right, great job, Matt. Like I said, well earned, hard fought podium tonight, man.
Oh yeah, thank you. See you guys.
All right, so that is our third place finisher. Let's grab our runner up tonight, and that is going to be the number 89 of Nick DeGroot. And I don't know. I mean, to me, Andrew, I think obviously for Nick, it's going to be a little bit of a sour one because, I mean, you were doing everything right, just didn't have the magic fuel number. Is that one of those ones where maybe you got too good of a start to kind of wind up leading there and then not having kind of that draft to save the fuel, maybe one of the first two runs? Or, I mean, take us through, obviously, because you had a great run. I mean, it was pretty much just you were in control all race long until just had to make the pit stop towards the end. Were there any thoughts about trying to find a way to stretch that final stop, or was it just there was no way that number was happening there?
Yeah, I have a tendency in these road course races to mess up, get into trouble, get into somebody, put myself off track. So my plan from the get-go after such a good qualifying effort, which was crazy, by the way, 1/1000th between the top three at a track this big. But yeah, my plan was just go for it. And especially when Craig made that mistake and an incredible save as well. And I was able to get the lead, and Covey got up to second. He had an amazing start. So I'm like, all right, we're 1-2. Let's just keep going. Let's keep charging. And I was hoping that maybe we could get a big enough gap where maybe we could come and get a splash and still be out in front. But Craig did such a good job at fuel saving. He managed to counter that. Everybody else, we were able to make that extra stop. And I know there were a couple more like Dan who were on Craig's strategy, but we were far enough ahead of them that we were able to either come out in front of them after the pit stop or with the tires be able to just overtake them, and a little help from push to pass as well. But yeah, there was a little a little thought though, like, man, I really like leading. Can I stretch this last run? And I probably could have, but I would have lost the lead anyway in saving. So might as well get put down some strong laps and finish second either way. So yeah, it was just a well executed race from Craig. Like I said to him after the race, it was an amazing save followed by an amazing fuel save. So congrats to him. Glad I was able to get second, and bummed though we couldn't round out the podium there with Covey. He had a really good strong race too. It was great to see him show up, but good job on Matt. He was running out across the line. So yeah, he did a good job stretching it.
Yeah, for me, how your race played out, Nick, it seemed like you and Covey were on those reds. Everybody else was on the black tires. It really did seem like you two kind of pre-strategized at the beginning of the race to try and run away from the field as best as you possibly could because you knew you had to run the blacks. I speculated that maybe you weren't so comfortable on them. That's why you did the double red strategy there. And It seemed like you were just trying to get as far ahead as you possibly could so that when the black tires came into a sequence for you, that you were going to just kind of ride them and feel them out and see how they'd be, and then eventually drop back a little bit. But then once you got a little more comfortable, to go forward a bit. I was surprised to see you pit there because I thought that you would have had enough of a strategy going there that you would make that last stint work. So I was very surprised to see you come in there. And yeah, take us through what you went through in that last stint there, what you were thinking from beginning to end.
Yeah, like I was saying, it was just I had the lead. I did not have a big lead because Craig's really good at keeping up pace while saving fuel. But the more I thought about it, I'm like, I can stretch this, but it's probably going to cost me a lead either way because he's only a couple seconds behind me. He's not going to have to save anymore. I'll be on the black. So if I pit, where am I going to come out? It's like, well, I might come out behind a couple people, but I'm going to be really close to them. We're faster than them. We'd have the tires would be right at the prime moment, the black tires, that is, or if it went to reds, I could have had fresh reds. But yeah, so I just thought about it. I'm like, I'm finishing second if I fuel save and cut out the stop, and I'm finishing second if I pit. So I figured might as well pit. And yeah, it was fun battling with Matt there at the end. It was a little scary at one point. Blew that one corner, but yeah, I think if I wanted to be on Craig's strategy, I needed to be on it from the very start. Couldn't switch it up mid-race. And yeah, you're right when you say that I didn't feel very comfortable on the blacks. I did not like those tires. It was even at the point where I made that pit stop, the last pit stop, I was like, maybe I'll jump on the reds, even though there's only a few laps on these blacks because I really don't like them. But then I'm looking at the deltas. I'm like, oh, then I'll come out behind Dan and Herrick and probably even Covey because he's not going to take tires. So like, might as well just stay on the blacks, use the push to pass and go to that. So yeah, I think the only way I'm winning that race is if I'm saving from the very start.
Yeah, you definitely held those push passes close to you for the whole race. We noticed as well. So it seemed like you were going to jump on some tire there. So it kind of took me by surprise that you didn't take tires there. But yeah, I'm sure that the staying on the blacks and just taking fuel only was the way to go.
Yeah, I was a little nervous too when I saw this guy Andrew Wood enter the server. I was very relieved when I realized he was going to be in the booth and not on the track. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. With no practice, we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, it's good race, good road course race. I'm usually not up there battling like that in these races, so it was good change of pace to be up there on the podium, leading a bunch of laps.
As what I was going to mention too is as you've kind of talked about the road courses kind of being your kind of your place to improve, if you will. I mean, was it a lot of laps tonight or before tonight's race or just off season? I mean, because you were on it tonight, and you also mentioned the Battle of Matt. I mean, that was something that that Andrew and I were commenting, was just the respect there between the two of you. Where you both were sending it there into the turn. You overshot a little bit, had to go through the grass, but you gave the spot back, and then you go back after one more time. And it's like the respect that you guys have as competitors is just top notch. I'd say, because again, you were used to racing with Craig and Matt and all these guys week in and week out. So was that one of those ones where like it wasn't even second thoughts, like, yeah, I'm giving this one back, I'm gonna go after it again? And then again, another great fight there through the bus stop, going back and heading towards start finish line. It was really cool. I say Andrew and I definitely really enjoyed that part of that race for sure.
Yeah, it was a great race or a great battle. And if I'm being honest, in the moment, I wasn't that excited about it. I was like, come on, Matt, get out of my way. I got places to be. But after the fact, looking back on it, it was a really cool battle there, going out at it with him. And yeah, I'm actually glad I blew that corner, because he blew it as well. And if I had turned in and he blew the corner, that could have been something ugly. So it worked out in the end for everybody involved. And yeah, got some good points. And I think just for my pace tonight, which is completely different than what I had at Monza when we last raced on a road course where I was wrecking for 12th place, I think it just comes down to the fact that I really prepared for this one, and it's a track I know really well. I'm really familiar with Spa, raced here in a lot of different cars, won here in F1 cars and Ferrari challenge cars and official races. So yeah, it's a track I like, track I'm familiar with, and it was fun. I'm glad we get to go to a road course once a season.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Like I said, you put on a show. Like I said, just ran away with it at the beginning, but just unfortunately the fuel mileage kind of bit you tonight. That's where Craig will get you a lot of times. That guy's a monster there. But definitely, though, got to give you the floor here, though, for that runner-up tonight, Nick, for thanks and shouts for that result tonight, because, yeah, it was a great run for you tonight in that number 89 machine. So floor is yours, sir.
Yeah, thank you to everybody at Factorback Motorsports. From covenmore.com, motorsport.com, Canvas Shoes, who has a new website. You can check them out at canvasshoes.com. Cowboy Shit, everybody else who supports us. Can't wait for the next one.
All right, man. Great job tonight, Nick. Look forward to seeing the rest of the season.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
Good job, Nick.
Thank you, Andrew.
All right, well, that leaves us one person left to chat with. That is going to be our race winner in that number 27 of Craig Forsyth. Had a little bit of insider info from Craig saying if we can make it, we're going to have to save and save hard. And Craig, just to rub salt into your opponent's wounds, I mean, you go 11 laps twice in this race to make it just, I believe it was 9 laps to the end at the end of this thing when he switched over to the Reds. I mean, you were on the fuel number from the get-go. Obviously, you had the big moment going through Eau Rouge to start the race with those cold tires, but saved the car. And was that maybe a blessing in disguise as well to kind of get into the draft of Nick and Covey and them, and then just from there do your fuel mileage magic? I mean, just take us through the save and then take us through the strategy tonight.
It was definitely not the plan to fall back to 7th or almost murder myself and the entire Area 51 crew. And, no, I didn't expect to be on pole. That was the shock. So as soon as that happened, I told the guys, it's like, well, the fuel save's out the window because I'm at the front. And so it was going to be, full push. And then, coming around the first corner, those guys all went wide. So I thought, I think I had a 1.5 second gap going up Eau Rouge. And I'm like, wow, this is working out great. Got to the top of Eau Rouge and damn near put it in the wall. So good on everyone for avoiding me. That was, the luckiest thing of my entire race. That's for sure. And then, the second I, went from 1st to 7th at the top, it was like, well, okay, I guess I'm on to the fuel save then. And just fully committed to it right at that point. And, in the testing, we'd done it and figured out what fuel map we needed to be in and, how close we needed to be to the car in front to carry the fuel save the whole time. The guys that were going faster, like, it's unfortunate for Will. He was really fast and then had an incident there. But in practice, I'd known I wasn't able to keep up with him while fuel saving. So there were certain guys I knew I could fuel save behind and certain guys I couldn't. And I got lucky with being able to maintain enough pace to keep in the draft and fuel save. And once I did the first one, I think I came out of the pits right behind Covey. And at that point it was like, well, I may as well just fuel save again. Why fight him? And so just went back to the fuel save, because at that point I knew those guys weren't going to do the fuel save. So the only other people who might be doing it would be behind me, and I feel real sorry for Dan there. He was on our strat and looking good for a podium there, based on following the same fuel save, because he was doing it from the back, but didn't work out for him. So it worked out. It was had the cars in the draft in the right places for that whole first 2 stints.
So bring us through that second stint there, Craig, because it looked like it was tough to tell if you were actually saving fuel behind Covey and Luis, because Luis was on the reds and kind of starting to fall off on the reds quite a bit, which was giving Nick a bigger and bigger gap from the lead. So the interesting part of the race for me watching there was trying to measure if you needed to go or if you needed to just continue saving fuel and just staying on that strategy, because you knew that Nick was pulling away seconds at a time every lap that went by. So did you ever feel a sense of urgency that you needed to get by Covey and Luis both there before Luis made the mistake?
Yeah, Andrew. When Covey got by Luis, I had to get by Luis immediately, because if we'd gone 3 or 4 more corners, Covey would have gotten far enough ahead that I would have run the risk of losing the draft of Covey. So as soon as Covey made the move to get by Luis, that was when I knew I had to go. So I pushed to get past Luis and stay on Covey's in Covey's draft. And then all I was doing at that point was just watching Nick's time and making sure he never got more than, I wasn't really going to be worried unless he got more than 10 seconds ahead, just because I knew how long a pit stop would take. And even, there weren't going to be enough laps left, I figured, with even if he was going full tilt on reds to catch back up.
Yeah, it definitely seemed like there was a sense of urgency that just hit you there, that you needed to make the move right then and there to make sure you had the fuel save, number 1, and number 2, just to make sure that you stay within reach of both of those guys up ahead of you. It seemed like that entire stint you had the upper hand on Covey on the blacks. You were definitely faster than him, but it looked like you had a lot of reserve just to hang behind him and just make sure you had that fuel number hit.
Yeah, it took basically a commitment to the patience to go, the end of the race will look like this. All you have to do is pay attention to the relative of, where Nick is. As long as that number doesn't get bad, you're comfortable sitting behind Covey. That's, it would have changed if suddenly Nick was 17 seconds up the road and it's like, all right, well, you need to go.
Yeah, it looked like you had a flyer of a pit stop there at the end too, which allowed you to kind of come out on the reds right behind Covey. He hit the push to pass, and you just kind of realized you were on the fresh red tires and couldn't really do much for the first few corners. So it looked like you were actually kind of maintaining it really well there and just doing what you could to make sure you stayed close and you pounced right at the right time.
Well, I knew the reds were to be nice garbage after 3 laps. So I wanted to do nothing that pushed them at all, just in case I, got stupid and did an off track or something that cost me time. So it was, even though I was now on the reds and only had 9 laps left, I didn't want to push it and be silly, just because once I'd come out at that point, I knew everyone ahead of me had no choice but to pit. So it was my race was at that point only the guys behind me.
Well, your strategy worked out really well because you were able to do 11 laps on both the black stints. So you left yourself quite a window to play with the red tires there at the very end. And it looked like once you got by Covey, you went right up to the back of Nick and started to threaten him, even though you knew they had to pit again. So that was definitely a good strategy on your part.
Yeah, it worked out. It was a good night for the whole crew. And yeah, as I said, I think Jim was able to get up to 5th there, and it's just unfortunate for Dan. That was the only downside for the team.
Yeah, it was exactly. I mean, you guys did a really, really good job. Yeah, unfortunately for Dan, like I said, he was going to have a solid run there as well until the late incident. Yeah, I mean, you do what you do best. I mean, like I said, we joke about you making changes in fuel maps mid turns at races like Dover, for instance, was one that comes back to mind. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely one of those ones that's definitely in your wheelhouse to make. Almost feels like you make fuel in that 27 machine, Craig. But yeah, just awesome job tonight. Like I said, we were joking last week. We were able to finally kind of dethrone Nick and and Jeff as the only winners. Now you get 2 in a row, so say things are kind of turning the right way. So definitely want you to enjoy this one. But before we let you go and celebrate, definitely want to give you the floor for thanks and shouts for that win tonight.
Oh, I mean, I've got to thank Jim over at 40 Racer, team sponsor, league sponsor, and I mean, Dan on the team, good guy, good comments. He's, doing really well. And I mean, hey, Andrew, it's nice to see you. Good to chat with you, man. And Gael, as always. And no, it's as I said, I'm always saying I love all the guys in Area 51, and I like them even more tonight because they were able to avoid me on my Eau Rouge screw up. So it was a good night.
Now, great job tonight, Craig. Go enjoy this one. We'll get you back over to your team. And yeah, so enjoy this one and look forward to seeing you soon. Congrats again, man.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night. Stay safe.
Congrats, Craig. Yep.
All right, Andrew, that is our top 3 finishers for tonight. Craig getting the big win this evening. But man, like I said, it wasn't the easiest thing for Craig. Kind of had to, had that big pucker moment to kick off the race. But then, like I said, almost maybe put him in the right place at the right time on the fuel mileage, the drafting. But I mean, obviously he had to hustle. You could tell by the way he was talking, like he had to work hard just to make sure he stayed in the draft to make that fuel mileage work. So it definitely wasn't a Sunday afternoon drive for him.
Yeah, when you lose the lead like that, especially when you already commit yourself to just running hard from the beginning of the race, when you know you messed up, it's almost kind of a blessing in disguise when you can go back to the original strategy you had from 7th place or whatever he said he fell to, just in order to try his best to make the fuel mileage work. And that seemed to be the strategy that everybody needed tonight, was to save a little bit of fuel.
Yeah, saying he's one of the best at that. So that being said, though, that's going to do it for us this evening. Andrew, it was a pleasure to do this with you. As I know we've talked about it a little bit before, able to kind of take advantage and get you in over here. So hope you enjoyed it. I definitely loved having you. I'd love to have you again here. I'm sure, like I said, a little bit more probably more going on in the Oval Series in the next couple of weeks. So we'll try to work our schedules around and be it with me or Boomer or whoever. We'd love to have you back in the booth, man. I hope you had fun. Because it was a lot of fun doing this with you, man.
Yeah, it was definitely a different experience for me rather than being in the car racing. But I'm happy to join on a road course for my first one to try and see some spaced out action rather than just the constant action you'd see on an oval. But it was definitely a lot of fun, and I definitely want to come back again.
Yeah, and speaking of, next week is going to be Auto Club, so expect to see 2, 3, possibly 4-wide racing over there. And then finishing it up, it'll be Kentucky, Michigan, New Hampshire. I know that one's going to be circled on your calendar, followed by Indianapolis, because we Chris and I had commented just how good you were at those flat ovals. So it's going to be a lot of fun, lots of racing to come. So hope you all enjoyed it tonight. Thank you all for watching, for supporting us here at Green White Checker TV. And we'll be back again on Thursday for the Super Speedway Truck Series. Get in towards playoff time over there, so definitely points are going to matter. So till then, take care, stay safe, have a good night, and we will see you all on Thursday. Have a good night, everyone.